Good morning, everybody. I've got a special Thursday episode for you. We're going to talk to Jim Mahfood. He is running his brand new Kickstarter for Savage Street Vigilante. And you know what? Let's not stand on ceremony. Let's get Jim in here. Jim, how you doing?
Listen up, David. If that is your real name, brother, there's been rumors circulating in the streets out there, man, of you challenging the Chocolate Milk Bandit on the authority of real comic book consumption. Well, I'm here to tell you today, Dave, before we bring out Jim Mahfood, that when I'm working for security for this guy, we're knocking down the walls of inferiority and shabby comics to bring the new level of artistry. So let me tell you, Dave, there's an alliance working between us right now. But we urge you, David, you don't ever challenge us or cross us. As long as we stay on the same path together, brother, things will be cool. But what I'm trying to say right now, man, you don't want us showing up on your doorstep in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
As long as we stay cool, brother, I'm going to let the other guy come on and promote the Kickstarter. But I'm just saying in a friendly manner, before I lose my cool West Coast Davengers, I got my eye on you, brother.
All right.
You do the right thing.
I got nothing but love for chocolate milk and the Chocolate Milk Bandit and Jim Mahfood. I'm sorry that I stepped on anybody's toes.
I got my eye on you, Dave.
I have a special episode today because it's airing not on a Sunday, but on a Thursday. And there's a reason for that, because my special guest today is one of the most talented artists out there making anything. And we've had him on the program before. His name's Jim Mahfood. He's also the co-star of Ink Pulp Live and Trash Movie Bonanza, an all-around talented human being. He's a great guy. He's also a vigilante. He's going to tell us about that. What's going on?
I am. Dave, thank you for the intro. Also, I love the collage of books behind you, and there's a copy of Deathwind up there.
Yes. Picked up at New Dimensions in Pittsburgh Mills with Jim Rugg, and he showed it to me. I'm like, what is this? He's like, this is early Mahfood, and I was like, oh shit, I've never seen this before. Let me grab it.
Yeah, that's a deep cut, man. That's like from 91, I believe.
Yeah.
And that cover is illustrated from my first art mentor, Lorenzo Lozana, who is a favorite of Jim Rugg's and Ed Piskor's. Rest in peace, Eddie. And those guys would give Lorenzo and some of the Artline books a shout out on kayfabe, and I wound up turning Lorenzo on to the channel, and he was like, oh my god, these guys are great. Like, this show is for me. Lorenzo's he's like 60 now. He's 10 years older than me. So he came up in that like 80s John Byrne, George Perez, Michael Golden era.
You can
and
see
then
that.
He saw that evolve into McFarlane, Lee, Liefeld, and just based off the cover of that Deathwind book, it's like you can see some McFarlane-y stuff. You can see some, you can
see Perez.
Golden. Yes,
yeah. I never knew that you were involved in stuff that was like, because this is 90, but this looks like it could have come out in 85 or 86.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun digging through all of those stories with him and like finding stuff. But yeah, when I go digging and I see any of your art pop up in a book, and I just pick it up, like it doesn't matter what it is. And but that I would never have known unless he pointed it out to me.
Dude, going digging with Rugg is like an experience, right? You went to more stores than I did. We had like 2 or 3 full days, but it was like 3 locations maybe per day, but like many hours at certain locations where we were just having so much fun that it was like,
Mhm.
dude, this is the equivalent of going like drinking at a good bar with your buddies. Like, I don't
Yeah,
really do that anymore. So the adult version of that is us being sober and going digging for old
the
comics.
adult nerd
So
version of that.
the
Yeah,
adult nerd version.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I think he like how you just said about Jim, and I was fun going with Jim, but I think Jim had fun watching me because of the way that I like the things that I look for. And yeah, at the time of this recording, this weekend, and it'll be next weekend at that point when people see this, but or last weekend, but I'm releasing 2 videos this weekend, almost 2 hours of footage of me digging through Pittsburgh with
Oh
Jim.
shit, dude. I can't
Yeah.
wait to see those.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
11 or 12 stores in the videos.
wow. Dude, I had no idea because I had only been to Pittsburgh once in the late 90s. I had no idea how deep Pittsburgh rolled with the comic shops.
Me neither.
And
I thought
it explains so much about kayfabe
it's
coming from
yeah.
that legacy of like, well, yeah, no shit. No, these guys had like the greatest spots to dig into, pull their resources from and to get their
Mhm.
history from. It makes a lot of sense when you go out there,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
And I bet you even in a post-pandemic world when I was just there, but in a pre-pandemic world, the books you could have gotten in those areas for such a low price as
Oh yeah.
opposed to now, like, oh, it is paradise though, and it is, man, I was like you, I thought Portland was the Mecca, and now it's Pittsburgh.
Yeah. When you are digging, and you don't have to reveal all your secrets to us, but when you're digging, how much are you digging for your own collection and how much is your collector seller brain grabbing and making stacks of things where you're like, well, I can sell this. This is the business part. This is
It's almost one and the same because there are things that I will buy that I know are hard to find that I'm just like, I'm gonna keep this. Like if I'm buying 100 books at a store and one of them is this like, weird rare book, I'm like, oh well, I'm gonna keep this no matter what, because it's gonna be paid for by the rest of this. Um, but I just know books at this point, and the more I dig and find stuff like this, you know, the more knowledge that sits in there. But I collect weird. I collect, outside of McFarlane and the artists that I'm a fan of, like you or Jim, or outside of that, like I'm not looking for big books for me. I'm looking for, maybe an Amazing Heroes I've never read before or something like that.
Mhm,
You know, or
mhm.
shit like that's recognizable by artists, but I'm like, what is this? Weird magazines and out of print hardcovers. Like that's, I now that the collector market has kind of calmed down, prices have come back down. I'm more in the line with what Sean Japan Book Hunter does. I buy stuff to resell that people have never seen before, because if I've never seen it, most likely you've never seen it.
Right. And it's a special item. It's
Mhm.
like that, like I said, like the deep cuts are what grab people's attention, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, it's crazy, dude, how many just since 2020, how many YouTube shows there are now about
Mhm.
people digging for comics and the collector market and stuff like froggy flips and for
Yeah,
people
yeah, yeah.
hunting for garage sales and old toys. And it's like, to me, it's almost like, are there more people making the videos than there are actual people
Collecting.
supporting the product? Like, how many hundreds, if not thousands, of people are making and it's almost like modern archaeology. It's
It's
modern, like
exactly what
you're
it is.
putting your backpack on, you've got your camera mount, you've got your bottles of water, and you're going into these old places. And even like you're going to other countries and filming this. It's like it is like a real archaeological dig to find these treasures of true art and whatever magic you can find, man. Like who the hell knows?
It's archaeology from that standpoint, from the pop culture standpoint, also from the human element of like the whole idea when I buy a collection from somebody or I go look at this is a part of a person's personality in life, and we're it's being moved to another place and then being spread out to other people, and it's like that in itself. I also find the store videos that I shoot fascinating because a lot of times I'm just shooting and there's conversation with the store owners and you're getting to know these people, and so that's the fascinating thing to me. I mean, I'm sure if I went into it really deep psychologically, I could pull out some other things in myself and in the other side of it. But I think there's guy like Froggy Flips, who I don't know well, but I know one of the guys that NC used to be. He's ADHD Dave because he moved from North Carolina to Florida. But
Okay.
he's one of these guys. He goes to garage sales. He films. He's got a huge audience, and it almost doesn't matter what he's selling. People buy it because they want to be a part of this guy's workflow, history, his videos, and his sales. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
we're all just looking for some deeper connection.
Yeah. You know what's also fascinating, man, is like not to get too deep with it, but like the individual store owners, their personalities and their vibe almost
Mhm.
reflect what the store is itself too. Like you go into
100%,
certain
not even
places
almost.
and I'm sure I mean, obviously you know this, but it's like, oh, this owner doesn't really want to talk that much. Okay,
Mhm.
that's fine. You just dig. Other people are like, they want to know what you're doing in there and what you're looking for. And you can actually chat with people and maybe get to know people and become friends or something. But it is reflective of the environment that they've built and the store
Yes.
that they're presenting. And if I had these videos when I was a kid, my head would have exploded because
Oh, me
like it
too.
is just getting to see all this stuff. Because when I was a kid, it was like discovering a comic shop. The first one I went into in St. Louis was a very small, like the dark and dingy comic
Mhm.
shop with the jaded chain smoking employee at the counter who didn't want to talk to any of us fanboy kids. He was just like
Yeah.
ringing you up and like, here you go, $5, but I was so excited because it was the first time I saw back issues and I could dig through things and I only had enough money to maybe buy a couple books at a time. But for me, the excitement of going in there, but also it being like, oh, and there's like the weird crabby guy who doesn't want to talk to us. Like, oh well, whatever. I'm still gonna go in and buy my new issue of Turtles or whatever I'm looking for at the
Yeah.
time. But it it was that stereotype of like, this is a different space you're going into. And it's like my mom wouldn't even go in. She would just drop me off and be like, I don't want to go into that smelly comic shop, whatever.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
I'll be down the street at, Woolworth or whatever shopping and I'll pick you up in like 20 minutes. And it was just it's funny to see a little bit of that on video presented on YouTube. But now across the board, generally most stores are much brighter and cleaner. Just
Thankfully.
and I was laughing when you did that video about um I think you were in the UK and you were
In
in like
Edinburgh.
some cellar
Yep.
basement digging and I'm like, okay, this is the archaeological stuff that the hardcore people want to Dave's got like gloves on and shit and he's got like a helmet with a light on
I
it
did.
and you're like going through cobwebs and like what treasures or garbage is in this weird cellar? Like,
Big big shout out to Deadhead Comics in Edinburgh. That was somebody in London at Mega City 1 told me when I told them I was going to Edinburgh that I have to go there and that he's a typical Scottish guy. He's a little drunk all the time,
sure.
and they told me, like, ask to go in the basement. If he's in a good mood, he'll let you go. I went 2 days in a row, and
Right.
I did buy gloves, and I did bring a headlamp with me because I'm a former mailman and I have those things.
Yeah.
And man, it was amazing. But yeah, spiders crawling on me, like who knows
Yeah.
what else crawling on me. Um, but I found some great books, and everything was,
Yeah.
I think, either a pound each or 2 pounds each. I
Wow.
found a copy of The Boys Number One there, and that was just last year. And that book has
That's the
been
shit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
So, but it is a reflect like, and I've said this to many people, and I think it bears repeating. It's the comic book store, and in this country, I think I can't speak for other countries in this way, but the comic book store in America is the last frontier of small business owned by a single person or people that every single one is different across the board.
Mhm.
It's kind of like when we were younger, you could say that about video stores, you could say that about music stores, head shops, but now that everything's gone,
I
all we
know.
have left is that. I mean, bookstores don't really reflect that statement, and record stores don't because generally you're not gonna find, uh, 150 record stores across the country that only sell used records.
Right, exactly. And dude, you know this, but like everyone knows what they have now, and there's
Mhm.
so like record stores now, it and I used to collect records, but like they all know what they have. So like
Yeah.
every record is basically $30 now. And it's like gone are the days when you could go in to a place and find like old Brown records for like $2 or
Yeah.
Coltrane or something like, and it's like, it's used, it's $2. I'm buying it. This is awesome. And there, I don't, it's weird when you go to, like an outdoor flea market or something, and there's the one guy selling comics, but he's looked them all up on
Yeah,
eBay.
yeah, and
And
it's
it's
not
like
flea market price.
totally random, shitty individual issues that are marked at like $7 or $8 each. And it's like, dude, these are $1. If these were
Yeah.
$1, I'd maybe buy them. But it's like you're not gonna get $8 for like a
For a
random
Turok horn.
issue. Yeah, yeah. It just it's weird. It's but I mean that's the internet reflecting on the collector culture. You know, it's they've gone hand in hand with each other, but I do love the just straight up like archaeological part of it, like what
Oh,
you guys
yeah.
are doing, and it's just it's fun to watch. It's like
It's
keeps it
fun to
exciting,
it's fun to
you know.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give you 2 little examples of what we were just talking about. The thing about going into comic book stores, there's no possible way. Like, I don't know if I've never had anybody call me a savant or have, like, some weird memory, like, amazing memory, but it is interesting how I can walk into a store and, like, focus and, like, Terminator, like, "Oh, that's that, that's that, that's that." I went to a store locally to me this last weekend, and I got a copy of, I got the set of Domu, the Dark Horse mini,
Oh yes. Yeah.
$15 for the set.
Oh shit, man. Yeah, that's a score.
It's
That's
like a hundred and
crazy.
seventy, $150
Yeah,
set, and I'm just
that's
like,
crazy.
yeah, yeah, and so like, there's no possible way for every store owner to know what every book is unless they literally look everything up, and I'm not, like, advocating for people to take advantage of stores, but when you pull some stuff out of a box and you hand it to them, I'm not, like, gonna be like, "Well, so you gotta charge me 150 for that and
Right,
30
right,
for that," you know?
right. Yeah.
And he all he charged me was because the guy had an excess amount and he wanted to get rid of stuff. And then the whole idea of putting stores in my videos, I was in Portland 2 weeks ago for Rose City, and I went to
Oh yeah.
Excalibur, because I can't I can't walk around a con for 12 hours. If I'm selling there, I can, but I can't walk around. So I went to Excalibur in the middle of the day, and there was a bunch of homies there, and I was talking to Debbie, and I had met her a couple of
Debbie's
times.
awesome. Debbie's
Yeah,
great.
she is,
Yeah.
but she's like, "Oh, your video," because I did a Portland store video. She said multiple people have come in and cited that video as to why they knew to go to Excalibur because they saw me digging around in there. And she got a little angry at me jokingly. It's like she's like, "Yeah, you knew this store owner's name and this store owner's name, and then you come to Excalibur and you're like, she's really
Oh.
nice, but I can't remember her name."
Oh shit. Yeah, it came back to you. Oh
Yeah.
well.
But, in that and being there for an hour, she's like, "Yeah, next time you're in town, hit me up. We'll grab coffee and I'll bring you into the back room and show you some stuff." And I'm like, "That's all I
Yeah.
ever want to hear," you know?
Dude, I'm sure she has treasures. And in Vancouver, Washington, our
I
buddy
like
Chris,
comics.
who owns I
Yeah.
Like Comics, dude, the entire basement under those floors of the comic shop is like a treasure trove of a basement filled with stuff. And I never got to go down there just because Chris was like, it's a mess down there. But
Yeah.
he would always allude to the fact that, like, oh, yeah, dude, there's gold down there. I just have to go through it. But he's like, the space you see up here downstairs is the same
Same
space
size.
filled with crazy shit. So who knows what some of these guys have, man.
Yeah.
It's
The
wild.
back rooms and basement of comic stores. I mean, we'll I'll just round it out with this. In the video, one of the Pittsburgh videos, we went to Pittsburgh Comics, and I had asked a question about a certain title, Crossed, and right as we were all leaving, and they brought me, Jim, and Mossy down to the basement to look through boxes of stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's like an entire store's
Oh
worth
shit.
just in the
Yeah.
basement. Um,
Yeah.
and it's archaeological, and at the end of the day, like, if I can, and I say this and I mean this with 100% sincerity, if I can put a butt in a comic book store in their town that they didn't know they should go to, then that's all I care about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't need it for kickbacks. Sure, if they want to thank me and show me some stuff that's not there on the floor for sale, yeah, I'll take a look at it, but that's not really why I do it,
Yeah.
you know.
I feel you. The funniest thing, dude, is making comics and finding your own stuff in those
Yeah,
back
yeah.
issue bins. Cause I've had workout for, almost 30 years. And it's like occasionally I'll find something of my own. I'm like, it's only $1. Do I rescue this and just give it to a friend? Or do I,
Yeah.
like, when I was in Pittsburgh, Brian Moss had his buddy Johnny with us, and Johnny's super young dude. He's like 22, 23, great artist. He did an incredible bootleg Batman comic book a couple years ago, but it was funny. We were like forcing these stacks of comics on Johnny because we were just rescuing shit. Like, Johnny, Ted McKeever, you know about him? You got this? Plastic Forks? And he's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. And it's like slapping it down in front of him. Dude, you're an artist. You need Ted McKeever in your collection.
Mhm.
You got this issue of New Mutants, Bills and Cabbage? Boom, it's in your stack. It's a rescue. You have to buy it. It's $1. And so Johnny's like walking out of the shop in the mall with like, oh, all these guys gave me all these books that I have to buy. I'm like, dude, listen, that stack is $50 for those 50 books. That's all gold, and you'll thank us later. I think you'll thank us
It's an
later.
education.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, supposedly, and I didn't know his name was Johnny, but Johnny fell asleep while you guys were there.
That's true. That's true. He took a little nap break. But Dave, you know this. We're the hardcore old
Yes.
timers that can stand and dig for 8 hours straight. Not to be a dick, but the newer generation, a little softer than us,
A little bit.
not as hardcore. They need to take their little nap breaks in the corner for like 20 minutes and then get back up. I think Johnny went down to like the Smoothie King or something and got
Yeah.
like a protein shake and then got back to digging. But dude, Rugg and Moss could go easily for
Hours.
10 hours a day.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I can go that long, but those guys, I can tell they're hardcore with it. So
I, knowing that I've flown and driven to other countries to do this, I'm probably the most hardcore person that anybody's
Okay.
ever going to dig comics with.
yeah,
You know?
and we got to get out at some point together,
Yeah.
man. We gotta.
Yeah. Either Kansas City or you come back out to the West. I know you got a lot of homies out here anyway. So
Yeah, I do want to. I lived in Portland for 5 years. The shops there, obviously incredible. It goes
yeah.
without saying. I've never really dug in Seattle.
Eh.
Not as, I mean, it doesn't compare to Portland, obviously.
Well, they just the cost of living and cost of owning a business forced a lot of stores out, over the last couple years. And
Yeah.
honestly, like, Fantagraphics might be the best place to dig in Seattle. And
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah.
very small, but their back room with their half price and just hanging out there. And like every
That's
time I
true.
walk in there, Larry's just like, "Oh, I got this thing that I pulled from the warehouse. Let me show you."
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So he knows he like.
He knows. He knows.
Okay. Okay. That helps too. That's cool.
But I think Pittsburgh, if you're going to come out for Eddie Pecan next year, that might be the time.
Yeah, for sure.
So speaking of comics, Let's talk about this fucking rad ass Kickstarter you got
Yeah.
going, which I mean, as this video shows, when it comes out, the Kickstarter will be active as of today.
Yes. And
Oh,
Dave, look how successful it's going. Like I'm so
I know it's
excited. I can
amazing.
breathe a sigh of relief.
I bought 46 copies. I hope you're happy.
I am happy. Thanks so much for the support, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah.
You have to record certain things in advance, just the PR alone. And I'm sure people watching this know, but like just making the book is just half of the Kickstarter. The
Oh
other
yeah.
half is building the campaign, figuring out what you want to offer, what you want to sell, what all that costs to ship, how you're going to ship it, and then the straight up PR marketing and promotion of that Kickstarter.
Mhm.
So it has been super fun and exciting, but it is a shit ton of work, which anyone who's done a Kickstarter knows that it's like it's a lot, dude. It's basically consumed my entire life, but not in a bad way, but I'm having fun, but it's also like holy shit, every day there's all these things to address.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Savage Street Vigilante is, and let's just get this on record, not a Batman comic.
This is true.
Um, but
This is true.
it is what we, like a bootleg comic is something that's been part of comics for decades and decades and decades. Like comics almost don't exist without the existence of bootleg comics.
Yes. Yeah. And it was something that I was always interested in. And I always, being friends with Ed and Jim, like they would always do these one off episodes about bootleg comics. Other people in the scene are making stuff. So for me, man, I'm a huge Caped Crusader fan. I'll just say it like
Mhm.
that. And I always had this idea of like, I want to do a bootleg comic of him. And starting this year, that was an idea. And I kind of it started very small where I was like, I'm just going to do a 20-page book and debut it at New York Comic Con in October and get this, printer that I found to print it like 500 copies, maybe only 200, whatever. We'll go from there. So I
Mhm.
start working on the book and then I started showing people the pages and I went out to Pittsburgh in April for Ed's day of celebration at Phantom of the Attic. And when I was out there with Rug and Brian Moss and the homies, Ben Mara flew in
Mhm.
just for like
Oh
one
wow.
day. When I started showing everybody the pages, especially Rug, they were all like, dude, this is bigger than a 20-page like bootleg. Like kickstart this, like use the platform, get the attention, use hopefully their marketing and their machine and blow this up into something bigger. And being out here in Kansas City, Scotty Young's my buddy. He said the same thing. He's like, dude, just kickstart this. Like,
Yeah.
this is a great experiment to see what you can do. It's a one shot. It's not a series. If it's successful, turn the Defective Comics thing into an actual imprint. And maybe once a year, you can do a new parody comic off of
Mhm.
something, some other IP you want to spoof or you want to parody. Like this could be your line. This could be your thing that you do. And that's what I started doing this year. And in the meantime, I'm still doing my regular freelance work and doing covers for like IDW and stuff like that. And commissions and conventions, but writing and drawing my own material, art directing it, throwing a Kickstarter, it just makes so much sense for my aesthetic, man, and like what I
Yeah.
want to do that I just don't have to answer to anyone, man, and I'm having a total blast with it. It's a blast.
Well, that's the thing. I've seen some pages you showed. You had some at Heroes. If you're having fun, and this kind of goes along with like any form of art, it bleeds through into that art. And
Yes.
I've seen these pages. I know what I've seen stuff you've put online, and it's like, oh, it's gonna be good. Like the energy that you draw with is unparalleled, and to put it into something that you're not doing for somebody else, like that's like the top that's the pinnacle of what you want to be doing. I assume.
Yes. And thanks for saying that. Yeah, it's funny, man. The juxtaposing working on the book with cover work on licensed properties like Godzilla at IDW, and I just did a
Mm,
Turtles cover, and Marvel this week hit me up to do a cover for a thing. But there's all these stages of approval with
yeah.
licensed stuff that I'm okay with because I like the challenge, and that's the job of an illustrator is you get hired by a client, you're trying to make the client happy while still being yourself and doing what you want to do. So there is a happy compromise, a happy medium there.
Mhm.
But notice I had to say that word compromise. It's
Yeah.
like there's some little notes that will come in that I'm just like, oh, I, I don't like that. It's like, why? And even the editors will say, "Hey, the licensee is giving us this note. We don't care. We think this is
Sure.
awesome, but because it's such and such, you have to make this little tweak to the art." It's like, okay, I get it. You guys are doing your job. The licensors are doing their job. This is the freelance world, but as soon as this cover's done with, I'm going back to making more pages for my crazy batshit book that I'm doing. No pun intended. So you know what I mean, man? It's a
Yeah.
good balance of doing what I want to do and having fun and being a professional. You know, I'm not the type of guy that's like, I'll never work for corporations or I'll never. It's like, well, dude, freelance is freelance. My goal is to make money.
Sure.
You know,
You gotta
the product
survive.
I deliver is my work. So it is exciting to know that people want my work, but it's also exciting to know in the form of making an actual comic book, which is a lot of work, as you know, like the writing, the breakdowns, the layouts, penciling, inking, lettering. It's
Mhm.
like it's a lot of work. So as an artist and a creator, I think you have to really carefully decide what time you're going to invest in that and doing my own work in that capacity, it makes so much sense, man. You know, as opposed to doing like a work for hire miniseries
Yeah.
where I'm working on someone else's script and I'm not that enthused about it while I'm working on it. That to me is like the worst, but a lot of new artists kind of have to start that way
Yeah.
to get your feet wet, but just know that, you know, hopefully there's a brighter pasture out there for you the more you do this. But I do encourage people to go the difficult route and sometimes do things you don't want to do because it builds your chops, man. Like
Of course.
it helps establish those notches in the belt that get you to a more professional level, you know.
And challenging yourself, right, will only help build your skills and know what you're good at and what maybe you don't have strengths in, so that when you're going ahead and doing it again, you're like, oh well, maybe I'll have, and just for example, like maybe I'll have this person letter it so that it takes that off my plate and I don't, or whatever it is, or I'll have this person, I'm having somebody now do a lot of my editing on my videos of ones that I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to do. It gives me, and it's not because I'm not good at it. It's just like I know that'll save me time so I can do this over here.
Yeah.
Um, but one of the things you said, and it's kind of rings true in a lot of industries in art, music, or movies and comics. It's like when you're doing your freelance stuff for a corporation, it's like, okay, one for them, and then the one for me, and one for them.
Right.
I mean, everybody, I don't give a fuck who you are. Everybody has to be able to know that they can do something that's going to give them the money that they need to go do the other thing.
Hmm.
Unless you're born with a fucking platinum spoon in your mouth, people don't just come into art and be like, I got so much money, I can do whatever I want, you
Right.
know?
That's
You know?
rare. And yeah, the one for me, one for them. I feel like one guy who's mastered that in comics is Daniel Warren Johnson.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
it's like so obvious his formula, man. It's like let me do you know do a power bomb, and I'm probably getting these out of order, but it's like, and then I'll do one for Marvel, Beta Ray Bill, and
Yeah.
then I'll do
Like
or
Murder
no, actually
Falcon.
it was probably Murder Falcon, Beta Ray, back to his own stuff, do a power bomb, do Transformers. I'm assuming his next major thing will be back to him. I know he's writing that new book with
Yeah.
Riley. But dude, Daniel is, and he's so talented. The advantage for him is it's like, who's going to say no to him at this point? So he can kind of choose the one for them.
Sure.
You know, and that's super exciting too, as a creator.
Yeah. And I think it, you know, and if it's something that you can choose, or you can say, yes, I'll do this, and you're happy with that when you're doing for Marvel or DC, and then you'll be happy doing the thing that you're doing for yourself. And, you know, I wish everybody had the opportunity to do that. And obviously, you know, you work to a place, but you know, you're part of a art movement that was able to kind of start indie and then like decide like, okay, I'll go do this. And I don't know if that still exists. I mean, we've talked about the same kind of mutual friends that you've crisscrossed with, whether it's like Tara McPherson out in you know, or
Mm-hmm.
Alex and Dave and Wayshack and stuff, but that I'd love to see more art movements start up like that, where it's like, yeah, we're gonna do illustration, we're gonna do movie posters, we're gonna
Yes.
whatever it is, gig posters. But it's funny, your history with bootleg comics and a Caped Crusader does not start with this, because right here is something
Oh, right.
you're doing the
Yeah.
Shitty Dark Knight, which is I don't even know how to describe that because it's so insane.
Yeah. I mean, that's the brainchild of Dave Baker, who's a fantastic writer, artist, indie comics guy. And him and his crew did Shitty Watchmen before that. And then, you know, I knew him because we were all in LA at the same time. And he does like, his girlfriend, Nicole Gao, is super talented as well. And they did a book together called Fuck Off Squad.
Oh my
And
god, no, I don't know that. That's awesome.
they've done a lot of stuff for like Silver Sprocket. Nicole did a YA Batgirl graphic novel for DC,
Oh, cool.
which was beautiful. But Dave, that was I blame Dave for the Shitty Dark Knight, but that was a fun one because he was like, dude, this is just you choosing 10 pages out of Dark Knight Returns and remixing it, or however you want to redo it. It's like but not out of meanness, you know, not out of like
love for the book.
Because at the time there was some like, at the time we were doing that, there was some backlash to Miller because he was like saying weird shit online.
He was at his most fucked up, you know, with his substance abuse and stuff.
Yeah.
Not that it's an excuse, but
yeah. And dude, I'm a diehard fan of his either way. And it's like, he's better now. So for me, it was all approaching it like, this is a fun remix tribute project. And just having that on my table at conventions, though, people, it immediately stops people in their tracks because they're like, wait, what? Shitty Dark Knight? Like, just the cover alone is like, well, I'll probably just buy this just because of the title and the cover. Like,
that's exactly why I bought it when you released Ballpoint Slayer, which is just up here.
Yes.
I was like, oh, what else is in the store? And I'm like, oh, I don't know what this is, and I like the title, so I'm buying it. You know?
Yes.
I mean, that's but do you remember, is there anything in your memory, like the first kind of bootleg that you ever picked up, or something that sticks out for you?
Oh man, that's a good question. Just being exposed to like zine culture early on and seeing people probably do like demented versions of established characters in zines. Like when I was in college out here in art school at the Art Institute, a big thing in the 90s was like taking corporate characters like Toucan Sam or whatever and putting an afro on him and gold chains, and people bootlegging that into like a t-shirt, screen printing it, or you know, the skateboarding era, man, of like fucked FUCT and using bootleg like Scarface images from the movie, stuff like that. That was kind of part of like zine skate culture, co-opting imagery from like manga and anime. that on skateboard decks and stuff like that. That idea of like, you can repurpose and take things and change them and hopefully not get in trouble with it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
and dude, one of the early things was Hart D. Fisher doing his anti-image comic. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Kill
coming to
Image.
mind. Kill Image. That's coming to
Yeah.
mind of like, oh, can you do this and not get sued? Like, I guess.
Parody laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
then if you're mentioning parody, I mean, I was also a huge fan as a kid of Mad Magazine
yeah,
and
there you
Crack.
go.
So that's another idea of like, oh, this is other people spoofing and making fun of this very established thing, whether it's like
Mhm.
the Batman 1989 movie or a famous TV show, Mr. T, the A-Team, Star Wars. It's like Mad seemed like they had carte blanche to kind of like poke fun of anything.
Yes, yes. I don't really think like there is vernacular and law wise there is a difference between bootlegging and parody. But I think when it comes to art, like illustration, I don't really see the difference. Like you taking the actual cover from Dark Knight and putting it on a t-shirt and selling it at a Comic-Con, that's bootlegging.
Mhm.
But you doing your own version of something that, makes light of certain things like he's a billionaire playboy. No, he's a millionaire fucking moron or so, like whatever
Right,
it is.
right.
But that's been part of our lives for a long time. And like you said, Mad Magazine, I mean, Weird Al's career is
Oh my God.
entirely built
Yeah.
on parodying brilliantly. Um, but I think of things like, even buying bootleg CDs when I was a kid of live shows. It's like, yeah, certain things would crack down on it, but then, cool hip bands they embraced it. They were like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can record our shows. And, like they weren't too happy you were selling them, but, it's like you can record our shows and stuff like that. But it's just,
Yeah. It's
in
that,
comics.
and that stuff starts to like, especially with the music stuff, that starts to get into gray areas of like,
Yeah.
because my whole life, man, growing up, I always paid for music, and then my friends and I would dub tape cassettes for each
Sure.
other. But then, like when Napster first hit,
Oh, hell yeah.
even at the time, I was like, this feels slightly wrong, but you're looking around, you're like, free music though? Like, I'm
Yeah.
a music
Yeah.
fanatic. Like, how can you say no to free music? And it's like, but I also know the guys that own the record store down the street, and they give me a discount, and I don't mind buying the physical CDs or albums because
Sure.
I like having that thing. I like having that item.
Me too. Yeah,
Um,
usually free music leads to you buying a shirt or buying a ticket to the show. It's like the idea of an ash can too. Like an ash can, what they were trying to do is like, here's the first 5 pages of this book in a mini.
oh yeah.
You're going to buy it when it comes out, aren't you? And yes, we did.
Yes. Yeah. That was the whole point, man. Is like, yeah, you just print the first like 10 pages and bring that
Mhm.
to the convention. And it's like, full book will be out in like a month. This is just the preview. It's like, that was a whole thing. That was a huge
Yeah,
thing.
it was huge. And, like I said, I've seen, and, I'm biased. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to support your Kickstarter, just by the fact that I excited to support your Kickstarter and I love your art. But the, showing
Thank you.
off some of the images beforehand and, you have not been shy about showing off especially some of the iconic looking images. That's what you got to do. And I'm glad, I'm glad that you're doing that. And, I hope people are going to realize like, this is it. It's just one book
Yeah.
and it
And
could
you've
lead.
got, yeah. And you've basically got the 30 days to support it or not. And the
Yeah.
other funny and challenging thing about Kickstarter is your success or failure is 100% public.
Yeah.
So
it
do you know
is.
what I mean? Like, so, I mean, the public, anyone at any time can go to your page and be like, what amount of money is he making? How many units is he selling? How many supporters are on this project? And it's like, you really have to kind of make that decision to put yourself out there and be
Mhm.
like, okay, if this fails, it's a public failure. And I guess you just dust yourself off and move on to the next thing if it doesn't go right. But if it's successful, it's celebrated. That's exciting. But there is this sort of like roll of the dice with the whole decision because, dude, I was looking for this week and I couldn't find it. But with Marvel Image, all the publishers out there putting out new content every month, is
Yeah.
there a site where you can actually see what the numbers are?
No, they keep that
Okay.
stuff pretty much hidden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because it's like if I do Girl Scouts through Image and it doesn't do well, the public really doesn't know about that.
right.
So they don't see the actual numbers of the individual issues and that, because I'm sure everyone knows this watching, but when you do a mini series, the first issue is usually really good orders, and then
Yeah.
it generally goes down from there. And then you have your trade sales, which hopefully are generally good, but you basically have that first issue out of a 4-issue or 5-issue series to really make your mark.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if you do well and you make your good money, it's okay that the rest of the 3 issues or 4 issues slide off a bit.
Yeah.
But no one sees that. But when you do a Kickstarter, like everyone is seeing your daily success or failure. So
But that works also on the opposite way too, because if somebody sees, oh man, this is doing good, it encourages them. Like it's like it's like a Schadenfreude or whatever it's called.
oh yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
you want to see the failure, but also like when you see the success and you're not part of that success, you jump on that boat. You get on there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Good
I
point.
mean, I've seen Kickstarters do really well. I've seen Kickstarters do well, but I can't tell you that I've ever seen somebody that I follow fail. Like
Yeah.
levels of doing well, but never fail. And you've got a really good track record of making great art in the eyes of people that consume that art, but you also have people that like I watch Ink Pulp, which is the show that you do with Sean, and obviously, I'm gonna watch it because I wanna watch it, but I'm not a cartoonist, so my stakes are I just am enjoying watching in the conversation. But I watch people that come in and are like fascinated by the fact that they get to watch the two of you draw. And like that thing that you're doing is like such a good way to build another fan base because and that's what it's about with comics. Like you have to build fan base or follower base or whatever it is, people that want to buy and consume your artwork. So I hope that those people also realize, like, if they're looking to get into comics, supporting other people is a way to show this is how you do it and this is how I can do it if I'm going in.
Right. Completely, man. And before I forget, thank you for always being in our chats and super chatting us and supporting us. Sean and I really appreciate it. And we are a community of homies and friends, like-minded people that support each other's stuff. And that's how a niche art form community like comic books survives. And I
Mhm.
think there's times where I feel like I meet collectors or creators that don't understand that this is like a cyclical community thing, that it's like, no, you guys, like one thing has to always support the other to keep it
Yes.
moving. And you can get preoccupied with your own work and your own vision, but you can't forget like the community aspect of this. Like no one can completely create in a total void alone. Like
Mhm.
you have to have people to bounce this off of and share this with. And with Ink Pulp Live, it's like we're literally sharing like the craft and technique, like you mentioned, and people are interested in that. And
Yeah.
the fact that there's a live chat and people can be like, "What tool is this?" Or it's like
Uh-huh.
it that lends to the growing and the community aspect of it. Of like maybe if we share some of our tips and secrets, other artists will pick up on these. they'll produce something totally unique and badass that we didn't think of, and then we'll be influenced by them. Like that was a concept that Bill Sienkiewicz told me about years ago, where he was like,
Yeah.
no, I'll try and share most of my secrets and techniques with people, because what if that person creates something that I didn't think about that blows my mind, and then I'm borrowing from them. So if
Yeah.
they're going to borrow from me, maybe they get to a point that I didn't think of, and then I'm borrowing from them. That's awesome. And it's like this free form thing of not stealing, but like
Sharing.
borrowing and being
Yeah.
inspired by.
Yeah.
Because there's already some up and coming kids doing their own comics right now that I've seen at like Heroes Con and Emerald City, and that are on the boards and stuff, that I'm like, oh, that kid's actually really good. And I feel
Yeah.
like in a year or two, I might be looking at his work for inspiration. Like the fact that they're even doing it is inspiring. Let's see where their technique builds to where this could be like a new thing that's happening. It's
Mhm.
awesome.
And you guys encourage that on Ink Pulp. I know you encourage that in person. I've watched you talk to people at cons and, look at their stuff and, tell them not even like critique, but just like encourage them. That's it. Critique doesn't always have to be a thing. It can always just be encouragement, because we don't get enough of it anyway in our daily lives. But the one other thing that I really love about Ink Pulp that speaks to me, and also, with Savage Street Vigilante, is the humor.
Yeah.
There is a point in our lives, and I can thank the Image guys for giving us humorless comics. And I think when I started reading comics, I didn't realize that comics and everything surrounding comics should, for the most part, have some humor, because the comic strip, where it comes from, was all based on humor or politics or both. Like
Yeah.
mixing the two and
Yeah.
trying to, like World War II, people weren't getting the humor, but after that,
Oh,
but
for
I look
sure.
at stuff like Barks, and I look at Eastman and Laird, and even the guy like Rick Parker on the Beavis and Butthead comic, like there's tons of humor. And what you guys do with Ink Pulp, with the promos, and what the idea of making a bootleg comic, like there's humor there,
Yes. Yeah. We're
and so
just being goofballs. It's like
yeah,
we take our art super seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. So you
yeah.
can be a goofy idiot and have fun, and hopefully that brings people in. It's dude. Me and my friends growing up were always such huge fans of humor, from like Monty Python to like
Mhm.
Zucker Brothers movies, Airplane, and old SNL, and
Yeah.
you've mentioned Weird Al. Like, just there was, you have to be able to laugh, dude, because life is sometimes dark and so difficult that you have to be able to laugh. And I mean, your shows and your stuff has that humor as well. It's like
Mhm.
it's just fun to sort of, and it's kind of an outlet creatively too, to like perform. Like
Yeah.
you're performing, you're playing characters. We're all doing like these weird things without breaking too much kayfabe, and just being like, guys, this is fun. Come on, like
Yeah, it
come on
has to
in.
be.
You know,
Yeah, I can't go through life without finding things to laugh at, or doing things that I think are gonna make other people laugh, or making myself laugh.
yeah,
And, I think comics should be always kind of be intertwined with that, because otherwise it's just, like Frank Miller has his place, but not everything has to be Alan Moore, Frank Miller. There can be some real genuine laughter, and especially in the side of promotion and in the
mhm.
side of a community. It's got to be fun. Otherwise, it just becomes, I mean, look, you've worked with Kevin Smith a bunch of times, and like he's responsible for some of the funniest everything that's come out,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the last 30 years.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And early in his career, he was like, God, even going back to the first Clerks movie, when Dante and Randall are talking about the stormtroopers working
mhm,
on
on
the
the
Death
the
Star,
second
and
Death
like
Star, yeah.
employee insurance or whatever. Well, it's like, oh, this dude's fusing fanboy nerd culture with humor, and
Mhm.
usually very raunchy humor. That's
Yes.
like something new, something different, something like there's an audience for that, and he was pretty good at tapping into that, like long before a lot of people in pop culture.
Observational humor with nerd culture and raunchiness, really, it's like a perfect cocktail.
Yeah.
So with the Kickstarter,
Yes.
what are we looking at here for rewards? And let's run that down real quick so people know what they can look for.
Yes. With the Kickstarter for Savage Street Vigilante, we're offering a PDF of the 48-page book. We're offering a print version, obviously, of the 48-page book, and variant covers from Mike Huddleston, Scotty Young, and Jim Rugg, all knocked out of the park with their variant covers. I did a 5-piece print set of like the lovely ladies of Freak City, the fictional city that this adventure takes place in. So sort of pseudo good girl, bad girl, superhero-ish print set that when people see the prints,
Yeah,
they'll be like, oh, I get what that's making fun of. Okay, I
lots
get
of
it.
butts, lots of butts.
Lots of butts, lots of shapes, lots of thighs going on. That's all available. And then I also have original art tiers featuring the original art from the print set. So
Mhm.
5 pieces of original art. I'm also offering a signature plate tier, which is you get the book with a 6 by 8 inch custom made signature plate in it, where
Oh,
I'm
wow.
drawing the Savage Street Vigilante. So like a
Mhm.
mixed media piece that goes inside the book. Um, I'm trying to just visualize the tier.
Anything for retailers?
Yes, and there's also, thank you for asking that. There's a retailer tier where retailers can score the book at wholesale cost with a minimum of a dozen books per pack for retailers. So I didn't want to exclude them. I don't want to exclude comic shops. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of comic shops.
Yeah.
It's just my way of doing my own thing without Diamond and seeing where it goes. But retailers, if you order the book, I'm signing every copy of the book, so
Wow.
you get the wholesale and you get them signed. We have stretch goals as well that I want to keep them as secret, but I've got like the first 3 of those that are lined up of like, oh, and then we can. I've got a couple other superstar artist buddies that
Cool.
I'm like, okay, this can be a print, this can be a thing, and so I'm curious to see like how it all goes when we introduce
Mhm.
those things. Uh,
And how many pages is Savage Street Vigilante?
oh, it's a 48-page book, 48-page
48
one
page
shot.
book. Yeah. So,
Yes.
the exclusive that I'm announcing today, which is not real, is for $75,000, you can buy the entire issue original art.
Thanks so much for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cash.
75 grand. Yeah.
Cash.
After that is something, man. I'm so focused on the campaign right now that I'm not thinking about it, but it is a thing of like, after the campaign is over, me considering like actually just dropping the entire issue online as far as original art sales go. Like
Wow.
literally just dropping the whole book and seeing how that gets divvied up or whatever. But I'm not, I don't want to jump the gun, but I
Sure.
do. One of the, you mentioned earlier, like all these sort of images from the book that I've been focusing on. And like one of my, without doing the cheesy image thing and making an entire book of pinups,
Yeah.
one thing I did have in mind though, making the book is like, I want every page, even if there's 6 panels or a page or just 2 panels on a page or a
Mhm.
splash page or a double page spread, I want every page of this book to be original art, sellable,
Mhm.
worthy, to where people are like, damn, dude, this whole book is just bangers. Like, shit. Like, okay. Like, there isn't, there's not a page where it's 6 panels and it's just the same image repeated in its
Yeah,
dialogue.
yeah.
Like, you're giving us visuals on every page that are sort of like, hopefully drool inducing
Sure.
I'm bringing it, you guys. I'm trying to bring it hard. And The book is in black and white 80s style with gray
Mhm.
tones and zipatone, but just, the black and white pages on them on their own all
Wow.
stand out to be, super graphic finished pieces of work basically, man. Like you could just frame these and hang them in there and it's good to go. So,
Well, and that's also a benefit of working on your own book and not having somebody else be involved in it. It's like, oh, like, well, okay, here's what the story calls for, but I'm going to make it big. I'm going to make it splashy.
yeah.
Um, Ed and Jim always used to talk about that when it came to guys like Jim Lee, specifically Jim Lee, about like, oh yeah, he was doing this book the way he did it because he knew this would be a $500 page in 1991 or whatever.
Yeah,
You
yes.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
And I want to say this to all aspiring creators as well that are writing their own work and drawing it is you can I basically made this book Marvel method where I laid out the plot and the beginning, middle, and end of the story, but then I allowed myself wiggle room in all the major scenes to add or subtract pages as I
mm,
saw fit to enhance the visuals. So, for example, if there's a 5-page fight scene and I feel like, let me add one more page to this fight scene just to give it a splash of him punching out this character or whatever. And it's like writing your own material, you can do it that way. And you can kind of, you're your own editor, you're your own
yeah,
art director. And as long as you fit that whole body of work into the 48 pages, you allow yourself ebb and flow to kind of be spontaneous sometimes, but don't make it look like you're being spontaneous. Like
sure,
each page is still has the same amount of work and craft put into it, but it's up to you to be your own editor and art director. And that's super exciting for me, man.
that's great. And you've been doing this long enough where like those skills have been honed pretty precisely. Whereas like maybe somebody creating their first comic book, should show it to somebody else and be like, "What is this flow?"
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think there is that's another conversation for another time. Like there is some serious need for good editors in major comic
Oh,
right
dude.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't want to put
That's a
anybody
whole other show. That is a whole other
yeah,
show.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, because I'll say this about that real quick. Being in this for like 27 years, like I've seen the transition from like the editor as curator, an experienced
Mhm.
art director and connoisseur to just a 22-year-old kid who Marvel had to hire for some reason. I
Yeah,
don't know that may or may not know what is good or not. It's weird, man. But again,
yeah.
that's a different show. That's a
Different
whole.
story. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
do the podcast called "What Grinds My Gears." Um,
Yes. It's like our
so
old man complaining show. Like back in my day, editors.
I remember when people actually used to know how to transition a scene. Um,
Yes.
so we're October 1st, we're live 30 days. Everybody's got to back it. Otherwise, I'm going to come to their house and spank them and pour spoiled milk all over them. Um,
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that.
yes, yes. And for everybody that is wondering, how do I Kickstarter? There will be a link right in the description. The first thing you'll see in the description is a link to get on this Kickstarter. But also besides that, let's just mention to everybody, they're going to be able to see you at New York Comic Con this year, right?
Yes, I will be in Artist Alley all 4 days. The Kickstarter is obviously going to be going on, but cruise by if you actually want to check out original art from the book. I don't think I'm going to be selling anything, but I
Mhm.
will have a preview of originals in my portfolio just because I want people to be able to see the actual size and scope of what I'm doing in the book. And I've got some new prints and a bunch of original art that I'm bringing for sale to New York Comic Con. And it's going to be a blast, man. And Sean and I are doing the thing that we did at Dragon Con, which is he's bringing like ink pulp, temporary tattoos for
Yeah.
everyone. And if you go to his table or mine and grab one, we're going to be doing a photo shoot, I believe, on Sunday with just
Cool.
our whole crew rocking the tattoos and just for fun, just to kick it with the community and have a photo of like, hey, we all know each other online through this thing, but we also are real human beings in real life that
Mhm.
enjoy each other's company. So
And
it's cool, man. That's what's so fun about the conventions. And I know that I think you got this out of going to Heroes Con this year,
yeah.
which is like this community is made up of generally good people and
Yeah.
people encouraging each other, being excited about art and comics, and especially Heroes this year. It just felt like a very
It
good,
was
warm place to be. Like, it was
it
just
was
cool,
just a
man.
wave of positivity. It really was. That whole I can't wait for next year. Um, but yeah, people are real, and the people in this community are not just real people, but they're real positive people and fun people to be around, and sharing about the things that they love, and not based on negativity and stuff like that. Like negativity can be fun when it's two old guys talking about grinding their gears, but also in New York City, because New York's an expensive town, $100,000 in cash will get you the entire original art for Savage Street Vigilante. Um,
Yeah, this is true. And I
yeah,
will bring it in an attaché case,
yeah.
handcuffed to my wrist, and I will unlock it, give you the attaché case and
Yeah.
the thing for your wrist, and you can walk out of the Javits Center with a 48-page crazy ass awesome collection of original art.
That's
So
not a Batman comic. It's not.
it's not.
Also,
It's my
let's
tribute. It's my loving tribute to superhero comics fused with horror, comedy, and just absolute fun, which I think comics just need to go back to, dude. There
Mhm.
are fun comics out there. Like it,
Sure.
I'm not, reinventing the wheel, but there's also a lot of stuff that I see that I'm just like, who is this
Not fun.
for? Like, I don't know.
Well, it's the everybody has to stop fooling themselves that comics are made for kids. They're no longer made for kids. The
I know.
and I don't mean that in a bad way. People that are going to see Deadpool are not kids, you know? People that grew up watching the MCU from the beginning are no longer kids. They are adults.
True.
They are in their 18, 20s, 30s. Like, stop fooling yourself. Comics aren't in Marvel, DC, Image. Comics aren't made for kids. I think Image knows that, but um, so New York Comic Con. But I want to shout out another thing you do. Lastly, obviously, we'll shout out the homie Chris Pierce, Comic Tropes. You have a show with him called Trash Movie Bonanza, where you guys watch, each give each other a B movie or sometimes a C or D movie to watch in the horror
Yeah.
genre, usually. Um,
Yes.
and you guys do like a comedy show kind of, about it.
Yeah, it's just like a pseudo fun review show of just yeah, we force each other to watch a movie and then we kind of break them down and also uh do our own, commentary over the movie. And
Yeah.
we have a fantastic editor. I'll shout out Jazzy Jamie Wood.
Jazzy.
He edits Ink Pulp Live and Chris and I show. And the Trash Movie Show completely relies on Jamie because he's cutting in clips of these
Mhm.
movies as we're talking about them. So without the clips, it's kind of like, what are these guys talking about? But it I realize that there are a shitload of shows on YouTube that review movies and
Sure.
review B movies and stuff. This is just Chris and I doing our own spin on that. And it's super fun because Chris is just a good guy and he's hilarious. And
Mhm.
a lot of the movies that I force on him, he hasn't seen yet. So, and he's introduced me to a couple new things, but there's been some things that are like, it was a revelation in a great way for him. And other things where he's like, why did you make me watch this? Like, this was like, you could mess with people with the formula of you don't have a choice. Like, you have to watch
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So it's also funny too, because I think most of the time he's watching these at night with his wife in the room.
Oh, no,
So I've
yeah.
told him in the past, like, your wife probably doesn't want you to hang out with me anymore at a certain point. Like after there was a couple that were like, oh, this is just an excuse for the director to like shoot topless girls running around in a house. And it's like, this is the pick for the show.
Yeah. I mean,
my hands are tied, Dave. No, I don't have any control. This is
just
what we have to review.
I wait until one of you suggests, and you both have probably seen it, but one of you suggests Meet the Feebles, and you do watch it.
Oh, that's a classic. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, in the Peter Jackson lore, it's a fucking awful movie.
Yes.
But in the best way possible.
Yeah. That's like, he also did Bad Taste.
And Dead Alive, which was brain dead in New Zealand. Yeah.
Yeah. Dead Alive is incredible. I saw that in college and was like, what?
I saw Bad Taste in middle school, and my mind was blown.
God.
Yeah.
That explains how you turned out.
Exactly. It actually is the path that I went to film school for a year, but it is one of those things that, like, between that and Evil Dead 2, the dementedness in my brain is the seeds are those two movies.
Okay.
100%.
That makes sense, man. It's funny because without social media growing up, like, things made way more of an impact back then because we were all so limited with what we digested, and to actually get a VHS or a DVD and put it in and sit and watch it, or to find a particular issue of a comic book, you had to invest in all these physical things and then spend time with it. And it things made more of an impression, I think.
I think you're right. I think because, you're so young. So everything that you digest at that age is going to make an impression. So your first albums that you buy, the movies that you own, because, maybe I there were a handful of movies that I went to multiple times in the theaters. Jurassic Park's one of them. I think I saw it 3 or 4 times in the theater. But when we were starting to get tapes and CDs and albums and VHS and DVDs, you just rewatch that shit over and over and over. And it forms this thing. And I think there was the generation after us that definitely, after me and after you, that definitely had that. But I think you're not going to have that anymore because it's all about what's streaming and what streaming service you subscribe to. So you can't watch that. There's so much out there. Who's going to watch a movie 5 times? Like, I just watched Furiosa a second time, and I liked it even more the second time I saw it, which means I'm going to watch it a third time because with art, the more you digest it, the more you're going to take from it.
Oh yeah, man. I've read Dark Knight Returns and Electra Assassin countless times. I mean, they're just repeat reading for me. I get something out of it each time. I revisit it, and they've been with me for so many years of my life that it's like visiting an old friend or something. But also pure inspiration, and technical wise, the older I get and the more I know, I'll be, when I look at the visuals from books like that, I'm like, oh, I never noticed that before, but he did this in this panel, or, oh, he must have used this tool for this. Your knowledge expands, and then you go back to older things and you know more about them. And dude, I'm not a filmmaker, but there's times where I'll watch old favorite movies of mine and I'll just sort of know, like, oh, that's what they did for that effect. I never realized that before. Like, that's interesting. I didn't catch that the first 12 times I watched this, but now that I sort of know a little more how certain things are done, that's impressive that they did it that way.
Yeah. When I did a deep dive on my audio podcast in the first episode of the second season, and it's about how Jaws directly influenced Jordan Peele's Nope and Godzilla -1. And for this, I mean, I've seen Jaws 50 times, but I watched all of the movies and made notes while I was watching them, and I'm like, the Spielberg shooting Day to Night, which is influencing Jordan Peele to shoot Day to Night, and like all of these little things. And it's like, I now love all 3 of those movies for completely different reasons than I did before I went into this kind of headspace to really analyze it. But
That's
you
awesome.
know, yeah,
That's super great.
you know, it's something I want to do further, but it's so much work.
Yes. You just reminded me that I still need to watch Nope. I've never seen it.
Oh man,
I don't know
I think
why I missed it, but it's on my list, but my
yeah,
list is very extensive, Dave. But
yeah.
it is on there where I'm like, why have I not seen that? The guy makes great movies.
I think it's his best. I mean, as
Okay.
much as I loved Get Out and Us, like Nope is his ode to Jaws with other themes that he puts in, you know, that are his own themes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so
It's
yes,
awesome.
so for anybody watching this, you get three things to do below. You get the Kickstarter link. I'm gonna also tag Ink Pulp so you can subscribe to that. I'm gonna tag Pros and Cons because that's Chris's channel where Trash Movie Bonanza takes place. And yeah, anything else you want to add to this for people watching with the Kickstarter and all that?
I think we're good, man, and well said. And you've done your research, and you're an excellent host. And I just want to thank you one more time for having me on and always just being around, dude. I appreciate it, and I love your content. And you just know your shit, and you make good stuff, and it's like easy. We need like 5,000 more of this in the
Yeah,
community or something. I don't know, but dude, thanks for being you and like giving me the outlet. It's awesome.
of course, man, and you are always welcome to come on and talk about whatever you want. And you know, when you feel like they're like, I want to add another podcast to my repertoire. We'll just we'll start one called "What Grinds Our Gears." Old dudes talking about nostalgia and things we
Yeah,
don't like.
I do like the old man idea of like it's, this show is for 40-year-olds and up. Like,
Yeah, yeah. We'll get Jim in there too, the other Jim, because
oh yeah,
you
yeah.
know he can go off like nobody else.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. That's a plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe 2025, 2026 we'll be looking
Okay.
at
Yeah,
the next show.
when Savage Alien Vigilante comes out,
Yes.
you know,
Savage.
he's got a big S on his chest that stands for Savage.
Oh shit, you just wrote the next co-plotted by
Yeah, yeah,
David.
that's all for you. That's all for you.
Okay.
But Jim, hold on one sec. Someone's at the door. I think I was waiting for an Amazon package.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah, let me just grab it.
Okay.
Whoa, man. Whose lights are on? Whoa. Whoa. Oh, Ben. I know you, man. You're the food guy. You created Girl Scout cookies, man. Oh man, I love Girl Scout cookies. What are you doing on my computer, man?
What who are you? What's
Oh,
your name?
now got me, Tim. You don't
Uh,
know me, man, from like the top hot book list of the month, man. What are you doing in my room?
oh, I don't know. I don't know, Tim. Hey, Tim, could you do me a favor, man? Could you turn your audio off for a
Thin
second? I just
mints.
have a
No, I don't even like the Thin Mints. All right, let me see if I can work that here.
quick
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah. Oh, all right, man. Whoa. At the mute button in the yeah, man. Hmm. Whoa, oh man, I see. Okay. I wonder what he's here for, this food guy.
Hey,
Hmm.
yeah, put on Tammy, my PR girl. Put her on real quick, please. Right now.
I wonder
Okay.
what he's doing in my room, man. Where
Tammy,
am I?
Tammy. Uh there's been a mistake. There's this
Whoa.
guy, Comic Tim, that I don't know. I don't know what this is, but you have to get me out of this. You
What?
have to get me out of this ASAP.
No, man.
Um,
I thought I was gonna talk to this guy, food, and now he wants to leave, man. Oh,
you
forgot to put
find
it
the
on mute.
contact info for this guy, Comic Tim. Call him immediately and get me out of this, and I'll stall it. Okay, all right. So Tim, cool, good talking with you, buddy. I have a signing that I'm doing. down the street, a signing to promote my Kickstarter book.
Man.
What I tell you what, why don't you enjoy your cookies? Someone I work with, this girl Tammy's going to call you to give you like the rest of the information that you need from me. And then, so cool. Good meeting you. Take care.
Man. Hot cookie.
Leave that section in or edit this in. Man, I'm kind of disappointed. It's not going that great.